The three blood-red moons of Vorak Prime hung like baleful eyes in the night sky, their crimson light bathing the ceremonial grounds in an otherworldly glow. Beneath them, hundreds of Vorak warriors had assembled in concentric rings around the ancient stone circle, their chitinous armor gleaming dully in the eerie light. Tonight marked the sacred Moonfall Convergence, a ritual as old as Vorak civilization itself, a time when clan hierarchies were reaffirmed, alliances forged, and blood debts settled beneath the watchful gaze of the Trinity Moons. Zara Lynn stood at the perimeter, her throat dry despite the moisture regulator in her envirosuit. She was the only human for 50 parsecs in any direction, and certainly the only one ever to witness the Moonfall Convergence. The towering Vorak warriors around her, each standing over 8 feet tall with muscular frames covered in chitinous plating, occasionally cast suspicious glances in her direction, their amber eyes gleaming in the darkness. "Remember your place, human," rumbled Kethvar the Bone. Render from beside her. His voice was like stones grinding together, the translator in Zara's ear barely keeping pace with the complex clicks and growls of the Vorak language. "You follow 3 paces behind. You speak only when addressed directly by an elder. You make no sudden movements." "I understand, Warlord," Zara replied quietly, her eyes fixed on the enormous ceremonial stones that ringed the center of the gathering. Each was carved with the skull of a different conquered species, none human, thankfully, though that was more due to humanity's remote position in the galaxy than any particular fondness the Vorak held for them. "Good." Kethvar's mandibles clicked in what Zara had learned to recognize as satisfaction. "Many here already question my judgment in bringing you. Do not make me regret my decision." Zara nodded, trying to project confidence despite the fear curling in her stomach. 6 standard months ago, she had been a mid-level strategic analyst for the Galactic Cooperative, crunching resource allocation numbers and drafting theoretical alliance protocols. Now, she was the strategic advisor to one of the most feared Vorak warlords in the sector, standing on their homeworld during their most sacred ritual. The journey from that desk to this blood-lit ceremonial ground had been improbable at best, suicidal at worst. A low horn sounded, its resonance vibrating through the stone beneath her feet. The assembled warriors fell silent. "It begins," Kethvar growled. "Follow!" He strode forward, his massive form parting the crowd of warriors like a blade. Zara followed exactly 3 paces behind, as instructed, keeping her eyes lowered respectfully, but watching everything from her peripheral vision. The Vorak around them shifted and murmured, mandibles clicking in what her cultural training had taught her was disapproval or surprise. "The human walks free. Why does she accompany him to sacred ground? Is she captive or counsel?" The whispers followed them to the inner circle, where 7 massive stone chairs had been arranged in a semicircle. 6 were already occupied by the leaders of the major Vorak clans, their armor more elaborate and adorned with trophies from countless battles. The 7th, slightly larger than the others, remained empty, Kethvar's place as the leader of the Razorclaw clan. As they approached, an elderly Vorak with faded plating and 1 missing mandible rose from his position at the center of the semicircle. Elder Corvin, the appointed arbiter of the convergence. His ancient eyes fixed first on Kethvar, then on Zara. "Kethvar of the Razorclaw," he intoned, his voice carrying surprising strength. "You bring an outsider to the Moonfall Convergence." The statement hung in the air like a challenge. Zara fought the urge to fidget as hundreds of predatory eyes turned toward her. "I bring my strategic advisor," Kethvar replied evenly, "as is my right as clan leader." "A human advisor?" The question came from the leftmost throne, where a bulky Vorak with crimson armor markings leaned forward. Morgul, leader of the Bloodtide clan. "Have the mighty Razorclaws grown so weak they must rely on prey species for counsel?" A ripple of clicking, laughter, spread through the gathering. Kethvar's posture stiffened slightly, but he showed no other reaction to the taunt. "Strength takes many forms, Morgul," he responded. "Some beyond your limited comprehension." Before Morgul could retort, Elder Corvin raised a gnarled claw. "The Convergence recognizes Kethvar's right to bring his chosen counsel. The human may remain, but will observe only. This is our sacred ritual." Kethvar inclined his head in acknowledgement and moved to take his seat in the seventh throne. Zara remained standing behind him, hyper-aware of her alienness in this gathering. Her analytical mind immediately began cataloging details: the positioning of the clan leaders, the subtle hierarchies evident in the arrangement of warriors, the symbolic significance of the various trophies and markings. "The Moonfall Convergence begins," Elder Corvin announced. 3 blood moons watch as they have for 10,000 cycles. What matters do the clans bring before the sacred circle? For the first hour, the proceedings followed what Zara recognized as fairly standard diplomatic protocols, albeit with significantly more references to battle prowess and ancestral honor than human negotiations typically included. Minor territorial disputes were settled, hunting rights allocated, and several blood feuds either officially recognized or formally ended through ritual compensation. Then Veltar, the sleek leader of the Shadowfang clan, rose from his throne. His armor was the darkest of all present, absorbing rather than reflecting the crimson moonlight. "I bring before the Convergence the matter of the Starforge wastes," he announced, his voice silky yet menacing. "For too long have these resource-rich territories lain disputed between our clans. The Shadowfangs claim rightful ownership by ancestral conquest." A low growl rumbled from Koreshvan of the Iron Spine clan. "Your ancestral conquest was 3 raids against our outposts during the Dust Famine, when our warriors were deployed against the Kral incursion. Hardly the stuff of legend, Shadowfang." Zara stiffened. The Starforge Wastes, a vast desert region on Vorak Prime's smallest continent, had been mentioned in several intelligence briefings she'd studied. Rich in rare minerals essential for starship construction. The territory had been contested for generations, with periodic skirmishes keeping the conflict simmering without resolution. "The Iron Spines had their chance to hold the territory," Veltar countered smoothly. "Failure to defend what is claimed is weakness. The Shadowfangs now stake formal claim to all territories south of the Glass River Basin." "Unacceptable!" Koreshvan slammed a massive fist against his stone throne, causing small fragments to crumble away. "The Iron Spines will consider such a claim an act of war." Morgul of the Bloodtide clan leaned forward, mandibles spread in what Zara recognized as the Vorak equivalent of a predatory smile. "Perhaps the wastes should go to whoever can hold them by force. The Bloodtides would welcome such a resolution." The gathering was rapidly descending into exactly the kind of territorial standoff that had kept the Vorak clans locked in cycles of violence for centuries. Zara glanced at Kethvar, who was watching the proceedings with calculated stillness. His strategy in bringing her became suddenly clear. He had anticipated this dispute would arise. Elder Corvin raised his claws for silence. 3 clans lay claim to the same territories. The traditional resolution would be trial by combat, champions from each clan to determine rightful ownership. "The Shadowfangs accept this resolution," Veltar declared immediately. "As do the Iron Spines," Koreshvan growled. "The Bloodtides will happily demonstrate our superior right through combat," Morgul added, mandibles clicking eagerly. Zara's mind raced through calculations and projections. Trial by combat would result in immediate bloodshed, followed by continued raids and counter-raids regardless of the official outcome. Resource extraction would be hampered by constant military positioning. Efficiency would plummet, and ultimately, all 3 clans would suffer reduced prosperity compared to their potential. Before she could stop herself, she leaned forward and whispered urgently to Kethvar. "This is unnecessary. There's a more profitable solution." Kethvar turned his massive head slightly toward her, his amber eyes unreadable. For a moment, She thought he would ignore her input. Then he rose to his full, imposing height. "The Razorclaw clan also has interests in the Starforge wastes," he announced, silencing the chamber. "But before we commit to bloodshed, I would have my strategic advisor present an alternative approach." A shocked silence fell over the gathering. Elder Corvin's ancient eyes narrowed. "You would have a human speak in the sacred circle?" he asked, his tone neutral, but weighted with significance. "I would," Kethvar confirmed, unmoving. Corvin studied him for a long moment, then shifted his gaze to Zara. "Very well. Let the human speak. It has been many cycles since anything truly new was heard in the convergence." Morgul made a dismissive gesture. What could a human possibly understand about Vorak territorial rights? Corvin's missing mandible twitched in what might have been amusement. "Perhaps nothing, but I find myself curious, nonetheless." He fixed his ancient eyes on Zara. "Step forward, human. Address the convergence." Heart hammering in her chest, Zara stepped past Kethvar into the center of the sacred circle. The crimson light of the three moons fell directly upon her, and the weight of hundreds of predatory gazes pressed in from all sides. Failure here would not only doom her mission, but likely her life as well. She took a deep breath and activated her data tablet, projecting a three-dimensional holographic map of the Starforge wastes into the air before her. "Honorable clan leaders of Vorak Prime," she began, her voice steady despite her fear. "I address you not as an authority on Vorak tradition, which I respect but cannot claim to fully comprehend, but as a specialist in resource optimization and strategic alliance formation." She manipulated the projection, highlighting mineral deposits throughout the contested region. The Starforge wastes contain 17 critical mineral resources necessary for advanced starship construction. Current extraction methods, hampered by territorial disputes, access less than 20% of available deposits. She paused, letting the data speak for itself before continuing. Contested ownership leads to inefficient extraction, defensive fortification costs, and periodic losses due to raids and counter-raids. Veltar's mandibles clicked dismissively. "These are known factors. Combat will determine the rightful extractor." "With respect, clan leader," Zara continued, "combat will only ensure that all clans operate below optimal efficiency. My analysis indicates that a shared stewardship model would increase resource yields by approximately 500% within 3 standard cycles." That caught their attention. Even Morgul leaned forward slightly. "Explain," demanded Koreshvin. Zara expanded the holographic display, showing a complex network of extraction sites, processing facilities, and transport routes. "Instead of single-clan control, I propose a tri-clan cooperative extraction protocol. The Shadowfangs, with their superior stealth technology, would control night extraction operations. The Iron Spines, renowned for their engineering, would manage processing facilities. The Bloodtides, with their unmatched fleet, would handle transport and defense against outside threats." She manipulated the display again, showing projected profit margins, color-coded by clan. Each clan specializes in its area of greatest strength. Resources are allocated according to this contribution matrix, with dispute resolution handled through a rotating council of clan representatives. The silence that followed was profound. Zara could almost hear the calculations being performed behind those predatory eyes. "You propose we cooperate?" Veltar finally asked, the words sounding strange in his mouth. "I propose you profit," Zara corrected carefully. "Honor comes in many forms. Is there not honor and prosperity for your clan? In strategic wisdom that enriches your warriors?" Morgul rose from his throne, towering even among the Vorak. "Pretty projections prove nothing. What guarantee do we have that once we invest resources, the other clans won't simply seize control?" It was the question Zara had been waiting for. She nodded respectfully toward Morgul. "A legitimate concern, clan leader. which is why the protocol includes these safeguards. She swiped through her display to a complex series of interlocking agreements. Each clan maintains exclusive control over critical components of the operation. Any betrayal would collapse the entire system, leaving the betrayer with less than they would have under cooperation. She turned to address the entire gathering. Game theory calls this a stable equilibrium. Vorak tradition might call it mutually assured honor. Kureshvan's low, rumbling laugh surprised everyone. The human speaks of honor as if she understands it. I understand results, Zara replied evenly. In the 6 standard months I have served as strategic advisor to the Razorclaw clan. Their territorial holdings have expanded by 30%, while battle casualties have decreased by 60%. Prosperity and honor have grown together. Elder Corvin stepped forward, his ancient eyes studying the projections floating before him. Fascinating. You propose a fundamental shift in how clans interact over resources. I propose an optimal solution based on the unique strengths of each clan, Zara clarified. The model can be applied to other disputed territories as well, with appropriate modifications. A low murmur spread through the gathered warriors. Zara could sense the mixture of skepticism and intrigue rippling through the crowd. She had their attention, but not yet their agreement. Veltar's sleek form rose again. And what role would the Razorclaws play in this arrangement? Or does Kethvar simply wish to play arbiter and skim profits from our labor? Before Zara could respond, Kethvar stood, his massive frame dwarfing her. The Razorclaws claim no stake in the Starforge wastes, he announced, surprising everyone, Zara included. Our territories lie elsewhere. We gain nothing from this arrangement except stronger trading partners and more stable borders. Then why involve yourself at all? Kureshvan demanded. Kethvar's amber eyes swept the gathering. Because endless war over resources weakens all Vorak against external threats. The galaxy grows more crowded. Other species advance while we fight among ourselves over scraps. His words hung in the air, uncomfortable yet undeniable. The Vorak had maintained their fearsome reputation across the sector, but technological advancement had slowed during centuries of internal conflict. Other species, humans included, had begun closing the gap. The human's plan has merit, Elder Corvin said finally, breaking the tense silence. But such a radical departure from tradition requires careful consideration. We have considered, Morgul declared flatly. The Blood Tides reject this proposal. We will take what is ours by right of strength. Kureshvan growled low. The Iron Spines will defend what is rightfully ours. Veltar simply inclined his head, his dark armor absorbing the crimson light. The Shadowfangs stand by our claim. Zara felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. She had failed. Despite all her preparation, all her careful analysis, the entrenched traditions of the Vorak had proven too strong to overcome. She prepared to step back, to accept defeat with as much dignity as possible. Then Kethvar did something unexpected. He stepped forward into the center of the sacred circle beside Zara, his massive form casting her in shadow. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the gathering. I, Kethvar the Bone Render, warlord of the Razorclaw clan, speak now not as a participant in this dispute, but as a witness to wisdom. He turned toward Zara, amber eyes fixed on her. This human has shown more strategic vision than many Vorak who have lived 10 times her short years. Her mind is a weapon sharper than any claw. Then, to the absolute shock of every being present, Kethvar did the unthinkable. He slowly, deliberately, lowered his massive frame and bowed his head before Zara Lin, a human, in the sacred circle of the Moonfall Convergence. The silence that followed was absolute. Not a mandible clicked, not a warrior shifted. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. I acknowledge superior strategy where I find it, Kethvar continued, rising back to his full height. That is the true way of the Vorak. We did not become the most feared species in this sector by clinging to failing traditions when better paths were shown to us. He turned to face the other clan leaders, his posture challenging. Will you demonstrate similar wisdom, or will pride lead you to suboptimal outcomes? Elder Corvin's ancient eyes had widened at Kethvar's unprecedented gesture. After a moment, he stepped forward. In 10,000 cycles of the blood moons, no Vorak has ever bowed to another species in the sacred circle. His voice was thoughtful, rather than condemning. Yet Kethvar, the bone render, whose battle prowess none here would question, has done so. This merits consideration. He turned toward the three disputing clan leaders. The human's proposal will be formally documented and distributed to all warriors of the contesting clans. We will reconvene in 3 days' time for a final decision. It wasn't acceptance, but it wasn't outright rejection either. Zara fought to keep her expression neutral, despite the surge of hope that rose within her. She had been given 3 more days to make her case. As the gathering began to disperse, Kethvar gestured for Zara to follow him. They walked in silence through the thinning crowd, warriors parting before them with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. When they reached the perimeter of the ceremonial grounds, Kethvar finally spoke. "You did well, human." "Thank you, warlord," Zara replied carefully. "Though I'm not certain it was enough." "It was not," Kethvar agreed bluntly. "But it was a beginning. The seed of an idea has been planted. Now we must nurture it through the next phase." Zara nodded, her analytical mind already racing through scenarios and contingencies. "We have 3 days to convince 3 stubborn clan leaders that cooperation is more profitable than conflict." "Yes." Kethvar's mandibles clicked in what she had learned was his version of amusement. "A simple task." For the first time since arriving on Vorak Prime, Zara found herself sharing in that amusement. Absolutely simple. Just rewrite thousands of years of evolutionary and cultural programming. Kethvar made a sound that might have been a chuckle. "Now you begin to understand Vorak politics." Together, they walked toward the landing area, where Kethvar's personal shuttle waited. Behind them, the 3 blood-red moons continued their slow dance across the alien sky, witnesses to a moment of unprecedented change. The next 3 days passed in a whirlwind of activity. Zara barely slept, dedicating every waking moment to refining her proposal, addressing potential objections, and developing detailed implementation plans for the tri-clan cooperative arrangement. Kethvar, to her surprise, worked alongside her, providing crucial insights into Vorak psychology and clan dynamics that no human analyst could have obtained. "Morgul is the key," he explained, as they reviewed holographic projections in his command center. "The blood tides value immediate, visible displays of strength. Your proposal must give them early victories they can celebrate." Zara nodded, adjusting the resource allocation timelines. "Front-loaded benefits for the blood tides, while maintaining overall equity. It can work. Veltar will scrutinize every detail for potential betrayal," Kethvar continued. "The Shadowfangs have survived through paranoia as much as strength, which is why I've built triple redundant safeguards into the oversight protocols," Zara replied, highlighting the relevant sections. "Any single clan can immediately halt operations if suspicious activities are detected." Kethvar's amber eyes studied her with an unreadable expression. "You understand our ways better than I expected, human." "That's my job, warlord," Zara said simply. "Understanding is the precursor to effective strategy." As they worked, news of what had transpired at the convergence spread rapidly through Vorak society. Warriors from various clans found excuses to pass by Kethvar's compound, hoping to glimpse the human who had received an unprecedented gesture of respect from one of the most feared warlords in recent history. Some came with more direct purpose. On the second day, a young warrior from the Iron Spine clan approached Zara as she was reviewing geological surveys in the compound's outer courtyard. Human, the warrior addressed her, mandibles clicking nervously. I am Thrak, third son of Kureshvan's bloodline. Zara set aside her data tablet and inclined her head respectfully. I am honored by your visit, Thrak of the Iron Spines. The young Vorak seemed surprised by her formal response. My sire wishes to know more about this cooperation protocol. He sends me to inquire. An unofficial channel of communication? Interesting. Kureshvan was curious, but unwilling to show public interest. Zara carefully controlled her expression to hide her excitement at this development. I would be happy to explain any aspects of the proposal that interest your sire, she replied evenly. Perhaps you have specific questions I might address? Over the next hour, Thrak presented a series of increasingly technical questions about resource allocation, dispute resolution mechanisms, and profit-sharing formulas. It became clear that despite Kureshvan's public rejection, the Iron Spine leader had thoroughly studied Zara's proposal and was seriously considering its merits. Similar encounters followed. A pair of Shadowfang scouts happened to cross her path during an inspection of the landing facilities. A blood-tied merchant delivered supplies to the compound and lingered to discuss transport logistics. Each interaction confirmed what Zara had hoped. Beneath the public posturing, practical considerations were taking root. By the dawn of the third day, as the blood moons began their alignment for the reconvening of the convergence, Zara allowed herself a cautious optimism. She had made her case as thoroughly as possible. The rest would depend on the Vorak leader's willingness to embrace change. As the ceremonial horns sounded across the compound, Kethvar appeared in full battle regalia, his armor polished to a gleaming finish and adorned with trophies from countless victories. It is time, human, he announced. The convergence awaits. Zara nodded, straightening the formal diplomatic uniform she'd worn to the first gathering. It felt like years, rather than days, had passed since that initial presentation. Whatever happens, Kethvar said as they walked toward his shuttle. Know that your service to the Razorclaw clan has brought honor to both our species. Coming from a Vorak warlord, it was perhaps the highest compliment she could receive. Zara inclined her head in acknowledgement, not trusting herself to speak past the sudden tightness in her throat. The ceremonial grounds seemed even more imposing under the full light of day. Thousands of warriors had gathered, far more than had attended the initial session. Word had spread, and it seemed every Vorak with the ability to attend had come to witness the outcome of this unprecedented situation. As before, Kethvar and Zara proceeded to the inner circle, where the clan leaders and Elder Corvin awaited. The atmosphere was tense, charged with anticipation. Zara scanned the faces of the three disputing clan leaders, searching for any hint of their decisions. But Vorak expressions were still difficult for her to read with certainty. Elder Corvin raised his ancient claws for silence as they approached. The Moonfall Convergence reconvenes to address the matter of the Starforge wastes. Before us remains the human proposal for a cooperative extraction protocol, as well as the traditional resolution through trial by combat. He turned his gaze to each clan leader in turn. The clans have had 3 days to consider their positions. I call now for their decisions. Kureshvan of the Iron Spines rose first, his massive frame imposing even among the Vorak. The Iron Spine clan has studied the humans' proposal in detail, he announced, his voice carrying across the gathering. We find the engineering challenges stimulating. The allocation of processing responsibilities acknowledges our superior technical capabilities. He paused, mandibles working as if the next words were difficult to form. The Iron Spines conditionally accept the cooperative protocol, provided the oversight mechanisms remain as specified. A murmur of surprise rippled through the gathering. 1 down, 2 to go. Zara maintained her neutral expression despite the surge of hope that rose within her. Veltar of the Shadowfangs rose next, his dark armor absorbing the sunlight. The Shadowfangs have identified 17 potential betrayal vectors in the proposed protocol, he stated flatly. There was a momentary pause as disappointment began to settle over Zara, until he continued. All 17 have been adequately addressed in the supplementary documentation provided. The night extraction operations suit our particular talents. The Shadowfangs accept the protocol. 2 down. All eyes turned to Morgul of the Blood Tides, whose massive frame seemed to radiate reluctance as he slowly rose to his feet. The Blood Tides have built our reputation on strength of arms, he began, his voice a low growl. Cooperation with other clans has never been our way. Zara's heart sank. So close, yet ultimately unsuccessful. However, Morgul continued after a weighted pause. Stagnation is the true enemy of strength. The human's transport and defense allocation provides opportunities to demonstrate blood tide superiority across a wider territory than we currently control. His massive claws clenched and unclenched as he spoke the words that would make history. The blood tides accept the protocol for a trial period of 10 cycles. We reserve the right to revert to traditional claim methods should the projected benefits fail to materialize. Elder Corvin's ancient eyes widened slightly, the Vorak equivalent of astonishment. It is decided, then. For the first time in the history of the Moonfall Convergence, a territorial dispute will be resolved through cooperative protocol, rather than trial by combat. He turned toward Zara, studying her with an inscrutable expression. The human will document the final agreement and distribute implementation timelines to all 3 clans by the next rising of the moons. It will be done. Elder, Zara confirmed, struggling to maintain her professional demeanor, despite the elation threatening to overwhelm her. She had succeeded beyond her wildest expectations, not just securing agreement for her proposal, but potentially establishing a precedent that could transform Vorak society. As the formal proceedings concluded, something unexpected happened. Warriors from all 3 disputing clans approached the inner circle, forming a loose gathering around Zara. Rather than hostility, their postures conveyed curiosity and, most surprisingly, respect. Human, a seasoned blood-tide warrior, addressed her directly. These extraction schedules, how soon can they be implemented? The Oversight Council, a Shadowfang inquired. How will secure communications be maintained between night and day operations? The processing facilities. An Iron Spine engineer clicked excitedly. Your specifications suggest a 30% increase in efficiency over our current methods. How is this achieved? Question after question followed. The Vorak warriors engaging with her ideas with increasing enthusiasm. Zara found herself surrounded by the very beings who, days earlier, had viewed her as little more than prey, now treating her as a valued strategic resource. From his position near Elder Corvin, Kethvar watched the scene unfold with what Zara had learned to recognize as satisfaction. When their eyes met across the gathering, he inclined his head slightly in acknowledgement of her achievement. The implications extended far beyond the Starforge wastes. As the gathering slowly dispersed, Elder Corvin approached Zara, his ancient frame moving with deliberate care. Human, he addressed her. What you have accomplished today may echo through Vorak society for generations to come. I only presented an optimal solution, Elder, Zara replied respectfully. The clan leaders showed wisdom in recognizing its value. Corvin's mandibles clicked in amusement. Diplomatic as well as strategic. I begin to understand why Kethvar values your counsel. He studied her with ancient eyes that had witnessed countless convergences. You have shown that strength can take forms other than martial prowess. This is a significant revelation for many of my people. Before Zara could respond, Corvin turned and walked away, his aged frame somehow straighter than before, as if unburdened of some long-carried weight. In the weeks that followed, the cooperative extraction protocol moved from concept to reality with remarkable speed. The three clans, having publicly committed to the arrangement, threw their considerable resources behind its implementation. Extraction sites were established, processing facilities constructed, and transport routes secured with an efficiency that surprised even Zara. More surprising still was the ripple effect spreading outward from the Starforge Wastes agreement. Other clans, observing the early successes of the cooperative model, began approaching Kethvar's compound with queries about similar arrangements for other disputed territories. Warriors who had built their reputations on battlefield prowess now sought to demonstrate strategic acumen as well. 1 month after the historic convergence, Zara found herself standing on an observation platform, overlooking the main processing facility in the Starforge Wastes. Below, Vorak warriors from all three clans worked alongside each other, their ancient animosities temporarily set aside in pursuit of mutual prosperity. "Your projections were accurate," Kethvar noted as he joined her at the railing. "First phase extraction has exceeded targets by 12%. The clans have proven remarkably adaptable," Zara observed. "I hadn't expected full implementation for at least another 2 weeks." Kethvar's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Vorak may be traditional, human, but we are not slow. Once a superior strategy is recognized, only fools would delay its execution." Zara smiled slightly. "A trait I've come to appreciate about your species, Warlord." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching the activity below. Then Kethvar spoke again, his tone more reflective than Zara had ever heard from him. "You know, of course, that what began here will not end here." "I had considered the possibility," Zara admitted. "The protocol could be adapted for other resource disputes." "It goes beyond resources," Kethvar rumbled. "You have introduced a concept more disruptive than any weapon. The idea that cooperation can yield greater strength than conflict." He turned his massive head to look directly at her. "Already, word spreads to other worlds. 3 delegations from neighboring systems have requested meetings to discuss human strategic advisors for their own clans." Zara blinked in surprise. "That was not an anticipated outcome." "No?" Kethvar's amber eyes held something like amusement. "Then perhaps your strategic vision has limitations after all." "Every strategy has limitations," Zara acknowledged. "The key is recognizing them and adapting accordingly." "Indeed." Kethvar turned back to the scene below. "The Galactic Cooperative has sent a formal request for your return, citing completion of your diplomatic assignment." Zara felt a sudden hollowness in her chest. Of course, she had always known her position with the Razorclaw clan was temporary, an experimental posting designed to establish preliminary diplomatic relations between humans and Vorak. She had accomplished that mission beyond anyone's expectations. "I see," she said carefully. "When am I expected to depart?" "That depends," Kethvar replied, "on whether you wish to depart at all." Zara turned to him in surprise. "I don't understand." "The Razorclaw clan formally requests your continued service as Chief Strategic Advisor," Kethvar stated. "I have informed the cooperative that your work here remains unfinished. They have agreed to extend your assignment indefinitely, should you accept." The offer was unprecedented. No human had ever held a permanent position within Vorak society. "There would be challenges," Zara said cautiously. "Cultural differences, communication barriers. Barriers that you have already demonstrated the ability to overcome." Kethvar interrupted. "The choice is yours, human. But know that what you have begun here has the potential to reshape not only Vorak society, but interspecies relations throughout this sector of the galaxy." Zara looked out over the facility again, watching Vorak from 3 traditionally hostile clans working together toward a common goal. One small step toward cooperation in a galaxy filled with conflict. A beginning rather than an end. "I accept," she said simply. Kethvar nodded, as if he had expected no other answer. "Then there is much work to be done. The next convergence is in 6 months. By then, we should have results substantial enough to propose an expansion of the protocol to all major territorial disputes. Ambitious, Zara noted with a slight smile. Strategic, Kethvar corrected. As you have taught us. Together, they watched the activity below. Predator and supposed prey united in a vision of a different future. One where cooperation might eventually prove stronger than conflict, and where ancient enemies might find more prosperity in alliance than in endless war. Word of the unprecedented partnership between human strategic advisor and Vorak warlord spread rapidly across the galaxy. On dozens of worlds, diplomatic channels that had been frozen for generations suddenly thawed as species reconsidered their approaches to interstellar relations. The Vorak, long feared as merciless predators, began to be seen in a more nuanced light, still formidable warriors, but now also recognized for their adaptability and strategic acumen. Human diplomatic missions, previously limited to more civilized species, expanded to include traditionally hostile or isolated civilizations. And on Vorak Prime, beneath the watchful gaze of 3 blood-red moons, a human woman, who had once been a mid-level analyst, continued refining protocols and building bridges between ancient enemies, proving with each successful negotiation that true strength could lie in recognizing wisdom, regardless of its source. 6 months later, as the blood moons once again aligned for the Moonfall convergence, Zara Lynn stood before the gathered clan leaders, not as an outsider to be tolerated, but as a respected strategic advisor whose counsel was actively sought. The Starforge Wastes cooperative protocol had exceeded all projections, bringing unprecedented prosperity to the 3 participating clans. More significantly, 12 other territorial disputes had been resolved through adapted versions of the same model, each success further cementing the new paradigm in Vorak society. Warriors who had once measured their worth solely through combat now competed to demonstrate strategic innovation and cooperative leadership. As Elder Corvin called the convergence to order, his ancient eyes found Zara in the gathering. For a moment, something like gratitude passed between them, acknowledgement of a transformation neither had fully anticipated, but both had helped guide. The Moonfall convergence begins, Corvin announced, his voice carrying across the ceremonial grounds. 3 blood moons watch, as they have for 10,000 cycles. But much has changed since last they aligned. He gestured toward the gathering, where warriors from traditionally hostile clans stood side by side without tension. The strength of the Vorak has always been our ability to adapt and overcome. Today, we demonstrate that strength in new ways. As the proceedings began, Zara caught Kethvar's eye across the inner circle. The fearsome warlord inclined his head slightly, not a bow this time, but something closer to the acknowledgement of equals, of partners in an improbable but increasingly successful alliance. Beyond the ceremonial grounds, beyond even Vorak Prime itself, the ripples of that partnership continued to spread outward across the stars. A quiet revolution born from the moment a predator bowed before his supposed captive and acknowledged the many forms that strength could take. What had begun as a desperate diplomatic gambit had become something far more profound. Proof that even the most entrenched conflicts could yield to wisdom, that cooperation could forge bonds stronger than fear, and that sometimes the most powerful strategy of all was simply recognizing value where others saw only difference. As the 3 blood-red moons climbed higher in the alien sky, they illuminated not just an ancient ritual, but a new beginning, for the Vorak, for humanity, and for a galaxy slowly learning that there might be better ways to thrive than through endless conflict. And at the center of it all stood Zara Lynn, once a mid-level analyst with theoretical models, now the architect of a transformation that would echo across worlds and generations. She had come to Vorak Prime to observe and advise. She would remain to build bridges between stars. The Predator had bowed, The captive had proven to be anything but, and the galaxy would never quite be the same again.